Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I thought I would do a get ready with me with a bunch of new Tarte makeup. Tarte has launched a new foundation. They've also launched a spring collection called the Bloom collection. So I picked up a few products from that and I thought we'd have a good time just trying these products out, see what I think of them. Now the foundation I have been trying out for the last week, so I do have some thoughts on that and I'll share that as we go. But I'm going to try a new application technique today. So it is going to be still a kind of first impressions, but not. I've got all my skincare on. I did put on a few things. I put on a primer. I did reach for this Pore Professional Hydrating Light Primer. Now in my January favorites and fails, I did talk about how this formula is not my favorite, but I have noticed some dryness in my skin and I thought like using a hydrating primer was really important today. I'm still using it, so even though it's not my favorite formula, I still think there's a place for a hydrating formula even with my oily combination skin. That's already on, and then I did put eyeshadow primer on. I just used kind of the cult classic Urban Decay primer potion, and then I also did do my brows. I just reached for one of my favorite eyebrow gels. This is the Charlotte Tilbury Legendary Brows Micro Precision Tinted Brow Gel. I do really like this because it's got such a small little wand, and I really appreciate that because I am pretty messy when I use these brow gels. I didn't do my brows on camera just because I find that not fun to watch. I figure I'd do that off camera. That's what I have on my face so far. I figured we'd start with the foundation. Tarte just launched this Shape Tape Cloud Cream. Why they call this Shape Tape, I don't know. It's kind of like, why does Urban Decay call every eyeshadow palette a naked palette, even though it's not a naked palette? Same idea. To be fair, I'm not a great fan of Shape Tape. I recognize it's a cult classic. So many people love it, but I definitely think that the Shape Tape concealer should have a warning label on it that says anyone over 35 should not use this or anyone who has any type of dry under eye should not use it. I just find that as we age, that's not a great concealer to use. Now, obviously there's going to be some people over 35 who still love it, but that was actually one of the first products when I started getting into makeup at 40 that everyone said, oh God, you got to try Tarte Shape Tape. And I hated it. It looked awful on me. And I wish there had been someone like me to say, no, that just because, you know, the 22-year-old at Ulta said it's great does not mean she knows anything about 40-year-old skin. That's just my 2 cents on that. However, I have heard good reviews on this. I wasn't planning to originally pick it up, but I was picking up the spring line from Tarte, a bunch of the products there, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna try this. I should never just assume, I should try. So I've been using this for the last week. What I've learned so far is that my preferred application, which is with a brush, is not great for this foundation. It gives it this very streaky look. And so I said, you know what? I've tried that for 2 or 3 days now. I'm gonna try applying with a sponge and see if I get a better application because this is very thick. And I think I just get too much on the brush and then I have trouble buffing it out and I end up with streakiness or areas of patchiness that are more applied than others. I'm gonna try using a sponge today. So I've just got a beauty blender here. I'm just kind of putting some on my hand and then we're gonna start with this foundation. And that's the other reason why I reached for a more hydrating primer, because what I've noticed is when I use this with my typical mattifying primers, I found that I was getting some dryness. And to be fair, my skin has been abnormally dry the last 2 or 3 weeks. I think it's just because it's been so crazy cold and the wind chill has been so bitter. And I think I just haven't been paying enough attention to my skincare routine. If you've watched my videos, you know I have a winterize your skincare video and I talk a lot about the changes you should consider making, and I didn't follow my own advice and I haven't made some of those changes. I think it's because we had such a warm December and now my skin's paying for it. Already I can tell this is a much better application technique. This is much more even. Now I still have a little bit of dryness right at the tip of my nose, but it's not clinging to these dry patches nearly as much. And of course, part of that is I prep my skin better, but this application, this is much prettier. I like the look of this. It really isn't doing anything for my pores. That's the one thing I have noticed, but I do, yeah, I think this finish is much prettier and I like it a lot better. I would call this medium coverage. I would not call this full coverage, but this is looking much better on my skin. I've said before that I don't like the Tarte Shape Tape. I don't like the creamy version they came out with or the more hydrating version. I just have had no luck with that product. I just grabbed one of my favorite high-end concealers, and that's the Lancome Teint Idole, which became one of my favorites last year when it launched. I love this huge doe foot applicator that it has. I think it really helps with application. And then I'm just going to use that same sponge to buff that out. Oh my gosh, when I put on concealer, if I am not careful, it's always the little corner that I have a tough time getting in and making sure that it's covered. Just find that product seems to gather in that location and it's so much harder to buff out. Perfect. I'm gonna set my under eye, and then I do have a cream product I'm gonna put on before I set my actual face. Again, I don't have a Tarte powder that I really like, so I just grabbed my Lancome Long Time No Shine Translucent Setting Powder. If you haven't tried this, this is a beautiful mattifying powder. It gives a really nice soft focus finish that's not too shiny. If you're looking for a translucent powder that is not overly brightening or illuminating, this is a good one to try. And this is one of the few powders I can actually use both on my under eye and to set my face. I can't do that with every powder. So we'll just go ahead and set that. Perfect. All right. Before I set my face, I just wanted to grab a cream bronzer. So I picked up my Makeup by Mara Soft Sculpt Shaping Stick in the shade Light. This is one of my favorite cream bronzers. It just works with my skin, blends out very easily. And I know different people have feelings about this brush, but I actually like the brush that's attached. So we'll just go ahead and buff that out. And you can see, if you watched my recent video looking at new Sephora makeup, and specifically I tried that Rare Beauty stick bronzer, it just was so hard to blend out and looked so orange, where this is just a more neutral and doesn't make my skin look orange, which obviously no one wants. No one wants orange skin, especially if you have no warmth to your skin. Perfect. All right, let's get on to some new products. I picked up a few new launches from Tarte's Bloom collection. Now, they did have an eyeshadow palette called In Full Bloom, which was one of their big palettes. I'm not crazy about big palettes, so I did pick up their Baby Bloom. It's kind of like the travel version. So I picked up that we're going to be using. And then I picked up both the blush, which is one of their 12-hour Amazonian clay blushes that I absolutely love. If you have not tried this formula, it's amazing. Now, this is a limited edition shade In Bloom. So we're gonna see how this works on my skin. And then I also picked up one of their new highlights. Look at this packaging. I love this packaging. This is their Glistening Light. I picked this up in the shade Rose Gold Glow. There is a champagne gold as well, but this one had a little pinkiness to it, and I wanted to try that out. So we're gonna start with the blush. Now, I already know I love this formula. It's one of my favorite blush formulas of all time. I just wanna see if this shade will work for me, but I'm quite hopeful. What I love about these blushes is they're just a really nice matte blush, very pigmented, but not so crazy pigmented that you're gonna hurt yourself or regret your life choices. They're not patchy at all. They're very velvety smooth, and they can build, which I love, and they last all day. I mean, I have had foundations where I've tried the foundation and it's gone in 5 hours, but the blush is still there, hanging out, waving at me, you know, and I just love that. It just gives me that kind of just in from the cold, but not the, I got a sunburn or I'm really, really angry look, which I don't really like that look, but gosh, that's such a pretty color. All right, that makes me happy. So pretty. I'm gonna try not to overdo it because I find that sometimes with blush, when I'm not paying attention. That's what happens. All right, let's try out this highlighter. Now again, this comes in 2 shades, a more traditional champagne gold, which don't get me wrong, I love champagne highlights, but I just love the pinkiness to this. So I'm gonna swatch it, and you can see what I'm always looking for in a highlight. See how pretty that is. I'm looking for a beautiful shimmer. I don't want it to be rough. I don't want it to feel gritty. I don't want to feel like I'm just spreading glitter all over my face. And I want a highlight that, don't get me wrong, I want it to be a highlight. I want you to be able to see it. But at the same time, I want to be able to build it so it's not like this strip, this landing strip on my face that you can see from space. So swatch-wise, that's beautiful. So let's see how this translates on my skin. I am going to apply this with a brush. I'm sure it's got a nice creamy formula. I'm sure you could apply this with a finger too, but I am going to reach for a brush. I find because I have those kind of fat fingers, I find that I can be a little bit more precise with a brush than I am with my fingers. Wow. Can you see how pretty that is? You can see it more on this side just because of the lighting, but that is beautiful. It almost makes it look like I actually have cheekbones, which is exciting because usually you can't find them. So I'm going to take that down my nose, over my brow bone, tip of my nose, Cupid's bow, and then at the edge of my chin. I don't have a really long chin, so I find putting a little edge on my chin is a good thing. Yeah, this makes me really happy. This is a gorgeous highlight. Oh, wow. Yeah, not too crazy. Not, like I said, a landing strip on my face, but just gives it a beautiful glow. I'm really, really happy about this. So let's see how it bears, but this is great. All right, moving on to eyes. If you've watched my videos, you know that the Tarte eyeshadow formula is one of my favorites. I feel like it's a very beginner-friendly formula. It is more powdery versus creamy than I would say something like a Natasha Denona formula or a Pat McGrath Labs, which, don't get me wrong, I love those formulas, but they are definitely not for the faint-hearted. And if you don't have a lot of experience, they can be very overwhelming. Even the Anastasia Beverly Hills, which is one of my absolute favorite eyeshadow formulas on the market, if you're not careful and you're not sure what you're doing, you can make a big fat mess. I have the original Tartelette, which is all matte neutral palette. I have the Tartelette in Bloom palette, which is a mixture of shimmer and matte. And I've also tried the Tartelette Juicy palette as well. Now, they just released, as I said before, they have released a In Bloom full palette, and that is a huge palette. And I just don't buy those because they're just gonna collect dust because I have nowhere to really store them, and I'm just not gonna reach for them nearly as much as I am for the smaller compact palettes. So instead of buying the In Full Bloom, I reached for this Baby Bloom, which is thought of as like a travel size palette. And I just find this to be, again, so easy to work with. When you look at the pans, you can see the top is an eyeshadow look in itself, and the bottom 3 is an eyeshadow look in itself. And I feel like, especially for beginners, this just is so much easier to navigate. So I think I'm gonna reach for the top row. I've got a nice matte on this side, and then I've got a darker shade that's got a little shimmer to it that I'm gonna use in my outer V. And then I've got a nice pretty lid shimmer. And then just for the sake of time, I'm gonna do one eye on camera, and then I'll do the other eye off camera. So we're gonna start with this matte shade. I'm gonna put that all in my crease. I'm gonna tap off all excess. And I'm just gonna stick that right in my crease. As you can see, very blendable, easy to work with. I'm not sticking so much pigment right where my brush goes. It moves around easily, it doesn't get caught, all of these things. All of the things I look for in good matte eyeshadows. Not patchy at all, just easy to work with. I'm gonna use a bigger blending brush, but I almost don't even need to because this blends out so beautifully on its own. All right, next we're gonna make this a simple eye look. I'm gonna put a darker shade in my outer V. I'm using my favorite brush from Sigma. This is their medium angled shading brush. I love this because it's got the angle on it, and I can stick that right where my outer V is, and I can make that shape really, really easily. And I'm gonna pick this dark shimmer right there, which is called Azalea. That matte is called Camellia. I'm just gonna press into it, knock off the excess, and then make that nice strip with this angled brush, just so I can get the pigment where I want it to be, especially now that my eyes are becoming more hooded as I age. And then just getting it into that corner. And then we'll go ahead and buff it out. So not too dark, a very simple look. Easy, again, easy to blend out. It's got a little shimmer to it. Perfect. All right, and then last but not least, we're gonna use the shade Lily, which is that shimmer shade. Now, a lot of eyeshadow formulas, they work better if you use your fingers to put them on your lid. I find that the Tarte shadows go really well when you use a brush. So I'm using a lid brush. This is the Sigma Eye Shading E55. I use this as a lid brush. And I'm just gonna get this on. It's got a little creaminess to it. Again, knock off the excess. And I'm just gonna place that on my lid. I start in the middle and then work back and forth. Oh my gosh, Tarte has one of my favorite shimmer formulas because it's not crazy pigmented. You can build it up, easy to work with. It's not as pronounced as, like I said, a Natasha Denona shimmer or a Pat McGrath shimmer, but it's just so nice and it's just so diffused and I really enjoy it. And then I'm gonna go ahead and buff that out just so there's not this crazy delineation between my lid and the rest of my eye shape. All right, I'm gonna do the other eye and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back and I finished my other eye. I did line my bottom lid with that Camellia, that matte shade. I didn't wanna do anything. I didn't line my upper lid. I wanted to make this eyeshadow look very, very simple. I did also put on some mascara and curl my eyelids. I just used one of my new favorites, this YSL Lash Clash mascara, which I think is such a great volumizing and lengthening mascara. And now we're gonna look at the last product. The Maracuja Juicy Lips have been around for a while, but they have a limited edition in the shade Bloom. So I picked that up. This is actually one of my favorite formulas. It is really hydrating on the lips, and especially in winter, that's what I'm looking for. I want something that's gonna give me some shine, give me some pigment, but not something that is gonna be sticky or uncomfortable or anything like that. If you've never used this formula, it's got a really nice shape to it. The applicator has a really nice shape, and you just kind of pump the bottom, which will bring the product up to the top to make it easy to use. So, yeah, it feels like you're putting on a lip balm, basically. This shade is really pretty. It's perfect for my lip color. I have this kind of very mauve-y lip color. And this is a perfect choice for that. Yeah, this is just so nice. It doesn't accentuate any lip lines. It feels juicy, which is, I guess, where the name comes from. Really hydrating, just really, really nice. So I took my hair down. This is the finished look. I hope you enjoyed this video. You know, my first impressions, I am gonna continue to play around with this. I have found that yes, the sponge is the way to go. Throw the brush away. Don't use a brush to apply this. The sponge look works much nicer. I'm gonna continue to use it and kind of give you my final thoughts in my February favorites and fails, but I'm much happier so far. In regards to the face products, love both of these. Do I think you need to go out and buy this shade specifically? No, not necessarily, but if you're in the market for this formula, the 12-Hour Amazonian Clay Blush, this is such a great formula, and if you're looking for a great shade, this Bloom shade is beautiful, and I love the special edition packaging they have that goes along with it. I can't say enough about this line, and this is definitely going to be a highly used blush in my collection. And then the star of this show, I think, is this. This really was unexpected for me. I don't think of Tarte as a highlighter brand, but man, did they hit it out of the park with this. This is amazing. It provides such a pretty glow. I love the little bit of pinkiness to it. You know, so many highlights are there, that more gold champagne-y look, which don't get me wrong, those flatter most skin tones, so I think that's great. but I think this shade is just, oh, it's just beautiful. And I love the packaging. No big surprises here with this Baby Bloom palette. This is their signature Amazonian clay formula. Easy to work with, not the most pigmented per se, not the most wow formula, but man, is it consistent and it's so user friendly. If you're in the market for a good travel sized, neutral, but kind of a little bit of a pop of color, a little spring palette, I would highly recommend this palette. And then finally, the Maracuja Juicy Lip. These are great. You know, again, I feel like this is what we're all reaching for, right? These tinted lip balm products. And this is a great option. And this color Bloom, it's perfect for me, but obviously they have lots of different shades. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give me a like. If you like this content, subscribe to my channel. I am here to talk about women over 40 and what works for us and what doesn't work for us. And my goal is to try out products and provide information so you take your hard-earned money, and if you're in the market to buy some beauty products, you buy good products. There's just so much not good to navigate through. If I can help you with that, I am happy. Goodbye from Michigan. Goodbye from the snow. I hope you have a great day. Bye, you guys.